is April 9th, 2022, and I am here with Taylor Moore in his garden.
Okay, so this is one of the oldest neighborhoods in Tucson, but my apartment is one of four in an old house.
And we are what they call downtown, correct? Downtown?
Yes. So here we are as of today with, I hope, a great leap forward beginning with my meeting yesterday. The meeting is with the group that I became involved with even before I moved to Tucson. It was called Sustainable Tucson, and it's one of the reasons I moved to Tucson was because of this group. And when I first came, I attended their meetings, which were held right down the street in the city library basement. And but I never could quite see how I fit, even though I've gotten their newsletter from the day I moved to Tucson. And but off and on I check in with them, and then in December I looked at one of their newsletters, and it was like the light turned on. This container right here is just normal composting. This container right here is worms.
Whoa, it's a gecko.
And this container right here is worms. And it's perfectly situated where somebody can walk their dog, and if they want to become a zero waster, all they have to do is feed the worms, or if they want to dump the compost in, and they can get, this is just a natural nursery up here. It keeps the plants well and shaded. So they can take to their house worms, plants, the works, if they become a zero waster. I'm a zero waster. These worms eat everything, all of the food that I waste. When I say zero waster, zero food waster.
Now that includes all vegetative matter, all meat, and all bone matter, right? That's the hard part, is the bone matter.
Well, I'll show you how that works later.
Okay.
So anyway, this is a hub to maybe turn the three other people, not only in this house, into zero food wasters, but anybody up and down the street though. And this is a really important neighborhood.
So you're saying your co-inhabitants of this house, which have different apartments, are all now using your zero waste system here?
Not quite.
Not quite.
That's
your
the
goal.
progress you come back.
That's the next step forward.
That's the way we measure our success, if we have any.
Hello, your name is Ilya?
Ilya, yes.
She lives with,
an ongoing gardener.
next door with Taylor.
Yes. I've shared his experience as he's doing kitchen worms and zero waste, and gotten the benefit of both some of his composting for my plants, as well as he shares worm juice, which we use to feed the plants out here.
So here we are in Taylor's kitchen with his bucket of worms. So yesterday you said a committee from Sustainable Tucson.
Yes, I met with some members of this committee, the Zero Waste Committee of Sustainable Tucson, and I sent them an invitation. Sustainable Tucson encompasses, when you try to segregate all of this stuff into different committees, it really encompasses everything. I would describe them as very focused on trying to live in sync with the planet.
That's very nice.
That's whatever politics.
And the label zero waste came out of something you suggested to the committee?
No.
Or they had it previously?
No, I checked in
Uh-huh.
and paid attention to their newsletter last December, I think it was, and said,
That's
and
the
snapped,
committee.
Here is a great potential leap forward. What attracted me to Tucson was Charlie and
That's your
her
daughter.
then husband. When I would come visit her, she would show me different things about Tucson, and one of the things they talked about was this group which was in existence, and I was in Sunland Park, New Mexico, and when I looked at their website, I said, this is exactly what we need in Sunland Park, and I was really got into it. But once I moved to Tucson, I got all caught up in the project with the kids.
Yeah.
And
Best
had
Day
no
Ever
time.
project.
The garden project.
And garden project, yeah.
And pretty much abandoned Sustainable Tucson because I didn't see where I fit. And I knew where I was going, or thought I knew, with the kids.
Okay, so
Okay.
we're going to do a brief tour of this garden.
All right.
And these are garbage cans, you said? Or
Well, this one is not, but the others are sawed up garbage cans.
Oh, okay.
And the city of Tucson, out in South Tucson, which is the area where the most problems are, is the place where they keep these garbage cans. One day I stopped in there and asked them if I could take some to Hollinger and do special.
Hollinger is a elementary school.
And so they gave us 12 garbage cans or so, and we sawed them up and tried to make
Planters. I would call
planters
them.
out of them, because every kid you work with at school wants to take a plant home. And it's just routine. You give them a plant to take it home. Then one day you go to their house and there's no way we're shooting ourselves in the foot. There's no way that these kids can make the plant grow. So instead of turning them into gardeners, we're making them believe they have a brown thumb. They can't make anything grow. You've got to start somewhere with changing the soil.
So what I understand is at the elementary school, and you started at Hollinger, they gave the kids plants to take home, and they bring them home and they plant them in the soil in their yard, and there's no way they can grow because the soil is no good.
Well, once you go to their house, you see you were sending them home hoping that you could turn them into gardeners, and they wanted to become gardeners. That's what you're teaching them in the garden at school. But the day you go to the house, you realize it's impossible. So we sawed off the garbage cans to create models. And that's what's going on in this house, is how you can grow under the most difficult circumstances. A kid can see it and say, I can do that. Pick up where we were back when you did Hollinger. These kids designed this, and they paid for it. They each built a portfolio because they were challenging the community to get the community as clean as they had gotten the garden. And the community accepted the challenge. And the way it was really simple the way it worked. The kids were going to become picker-uppers instead of thrower-downers. And when the community accepted this challenge, the kids got excited about their portfolios. I don't know how to convey that excitement, except I was part of it, and they suddenly knew that they could change
So
the
the
community.
portfolios was a record of the various activities the kids had done to improve their local communities, their homes, gardens, and
It started out as being this was their ticket to college. This portfolio really became important. Plus, it kept the kids out of trouble.
Now this is the cleanup project, but what we're talking about now is another wave after the cleanup project. Has to do with what?
With worms. So the property where we had our garden changed hands, and the new owner didn't want a garden. And we had this composting project where I went to restaurants, and or not me, the kids went to restaurants, and we sold our produce to them, but we also picked up their compostable material. And it takes a long time to train a restaurant, the employees of a restaurant, not to throw plastic into the compostable material. And I didn't want to lose that. So when the new owner shut down our garden, I took the composting project to Hollinger, as well as our worm project, which we also had at the kids' community garden. It's a KH school, yeah, where I volunteered, and so I put this worm project or the composting project right in the middle of Hollinger.
On the school ground.
And I was taking in my car like 20, 25 5-gallon buckets 5 days a week full of wet compost, which way, I was getting lots of exercise lifting those things out and dumping them, and I didn't really realize how fast it would accumulate. But what came was fruit flies, and every now and then a stench.
When the wind blew.
And so one day I went to Hollinger, and there was yellow tape, and the kids were all blocked from school, and the school was surrounded with yellow. It was a crime scene, and it turned out I was the criminal. And what was going on inside of the yellow tape was they had big dump trucks taking my composting project along with our worms to the dump. So we had no worms. In the desert, it's really difficult to compost. You don't have a lot of leaves. But what you do have at a school is all kinds of cardboard. And if you look right over there,
at the neighbors,
our four people right here fill up 2 cans with cardboards, two garbage cans.
You're saying you can replace leaves in composting as a surface layer with cardboard.
Had I known that at Hollinger, I would not have had the problem with the fruit flies. And Hollinger generates this massive amount of cardboard. It has the potential to become the first zero-waste school.
What would you have had to done with the cardboard? Would you just lay it on top of it?
What I did with this garden was I bought a chipper shredder.
Okay, so you have to shred it.
Okay, but when I got on the internet to try to solve that problem, I saw chipper shredders that would have been perfect for the car.
So unique.
And I realized, had I done that at Hollinger, we would have been close to a zero-waste school. Once I checked back in with Sustainable Tucson, I realized that we could pull all of these things together, potentially, if Sustainable Tucson buys in. So if you go on the internet and look for worm projects, there are many, and they'll all tell you that this is a particularly ugly one. Let me get these things out. See these? This is just to keep this thing.
Hello, little guy.
This is just to keep this thing moist.
They need to be moist, the worms.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If they dry out, they die. So you got to have them moist. This is an easy way to harvest them.
Are you using like old cloth for that? For moisture?
That's an old rug.
It's an old rug, sure.
It's an old rug that doesn't go to the landfill, but it's made out of stuff that this stuff just.
Another example of zero waste.
Well,
using the old rug.
Okay.
Is this fluid on the bottom what you were what you're looking for?
This is worm tea.
Worm tea.
And it is really powerful.
Wow. As a nutrient for plants.
Yeah, well, yeah, it turns the soil into, but it's full of live
Bacteria?
microorganisms,
Oh, yeah.
and they die, so it's got a short shelf life. And the kids need a way for quality control. But if you send a kid home with a bucket, any 5-gallon bucket, just like this,
Okay.
could be ugly. I've got these things marked. I started out with one.
This is number 5.
Well, I very quickly got to 13. I had in that little kitchen, I had
Sure.
13 of these.
And this is another example of recycling, because this kind of bucket often ends up in landfills
It's
too.
well, you do so for nothing everywhere. In any community, anywhere, a kid can find a bucket. They can find a rock, or they can find something this size, and the worms will fit in that bucket. So if we dump them out,
So you're going to dump out this is. Okay, so that's got leafy matter in it, and it's got worms. I see some worms there.
if you look at
It's very moist.
if you look in this bucket, you'll see you've got to block these holes.
So it doesn't drain out too fast.
And so I use that because that's what I had that
Just
day.
some screening material. Yeah.
Well, a pair of hose would, a woman's hose would
Oh,
do
cool.
the same
Yeah.
thing. So this costs nothing, and so this is the worms feed on the top, but they need a nest on the bottom, which can be either leaves or
Shredded cardboard.
or this cardboard, which comes across there. When I came home trying to save our worm farm after the
After the crime scene.
coronavirus,
Oh, okay.
we had salvaged approximately, I had maybe 15 worms in a bucket in my kitchen. And then I did this, and all of a sudden the worms started coming, and it grew. In the bottom, the worms need nesting material.
So you have to put it back
So
in.
they could be this, or they could be this.
Yeah, sure.
And if we look behind you,
That's it.
yes, at the aquarium, you can divide this aquarium into more than one section, and do with time-lapse photography, keep track of what the worms like the best. Do they like?
So they're like home experiments in biology and nutrients. I get it.
Do they like mesquite leaves better than fig leaves? Do they like?
So if the worms are growing,
cardboard.
and if there's more of them, you know they're liking what you're giving them as a nutrient.
Do they sleep, or do they work for you 24 hours? All of this you can find out with time-lapse photography, and kids can do it. And
Yeah.
kids can explain it. The name of the game is to get the youngest one possible. The youngest one possible. The longer you wait, the more habits you got to change, I can tell you.
So what would you send off with a kid to get his starter kit? What would be his starter kit?
The starter kit is a little container. I eat lots of yogurt, so it's a yogurt container with maybe 25 worms. I just take a handful of worms, put them in there, and just enough of this stuff to send them home. But if you take a look, you
Yeah, the
pick
worms
up
are
some of this
prospering,
stuff.
yeah.
There's all kinds of worms in here. So the lid to this thing is glass. I started out with metal lids. The whole idea here was, on the internet it says you don't use cheese, you don't use milk products, and you surely don't use meat, or you will have mice.
Okay.
And so my approach was, what can we keep from the landfill? So this is designed to keep the mice out.
Right.
And I don't
Mice
have,
aren't going to get in there.
and so I started with a lid that was metal, and I have some metal lids in there. But then I learned that
Sunlight?
you
Visible
put
light?
the potatoes in there, and they sprout. And let me show you what happens.
How do you see this playing out in the future?
Well, with my neighborhood, we're going to find how many zero wasters there are in the community.
Are you talking to your neighbors about this?
Well, first, you're right here. It's just beginning. First, I have to get buy-in from the storytellers. You are a storyteller. Sustainable Tucson is a storyteller. Once we get our stories going, then we've got to get the material for the stories, which we will get from the very bottom up, if we can do it straightforward and honestly deal with each problem.